Thanks for watching this video. Today we're going to look at the clean out stage 1 for Covington 12-pound barrels and the Rebel 17-pound barrels, and what we do to get good results. Because these are larger specimens I bought in quartzite, I'm looking for a really nice smooth polish, and just by touching, if you watched my last video, you saw how I also do the feel thing, because when they're wet you can be deceived, and you can just feel this one's got all kinds of open pitting and grooves, so that one's not going to make it on. Now, if you watched my video about 90% or 70%, wherever the title was, I did have a couple smaller pieces that made it through that did okay, but that's just not going to fly. We're looking for, these are going to be premium pieces that I'm going to try and get a fair market price for. Because they're larger, I want them to be as close to flawless as possible. And it's okay if you rinse them out and you have a little bit of grit, because it's all going back in there anyway. And normally I go about 10 days in between stages. This time it's a literal 7 days, so you can tell the grit's not quite broken down. Usually for me, after about 10 days, the grit is usually broken down. And I use this barrel only for stage 1, so it's not going to be a huge deal. But these are pretty specimens, just nothing ready for the next stage. I imagine as I get towards the bottom that some of the smaller ones might have the rounding shape like this guy. We'll look at him in a second. So out of this 17-pound barrel, we've got 2 potential pieces moving on, and I want to say at least 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks minimum. I have to check my records. This one could be issues, we're just not going to let that one go through. And this guy has got some issues depending on, so here's how I kind of do it. So if I have basically smooth stuff that's not challenging, I want to keep that the same, so that way I'm not constantly spending 3.5 hours on the ultrasonic cleaner, which I would have to with this guy contaminating each stage. So I'm going to put that one back in. So unfortunately nothing passed the muster on this time for this barrel. This is a mix of stuff that shrunk down from my Covington 12s, and I mixed in here with some tiger's eye and some other stuff. This guy is from Montana. I've got another piece similar to this that I absolutely love that I did a while ago, and this one I'm really working to get some of these cracks out, but we'll see. Alright, you can see we still have a little bit of sludge in there. I don't really want to do less than 10 teaspoons. Because it is a 17-pound barrel. Maybe I cut it back by a couple. We have a little bit of build up there. Alright, this is truly a mixed bag. Got this is another Montana piece. Just love the way you can see it form this way, then this way. And it's like, how on earth did that happen unless at some point the material is very pliable, which would make sense if you're a creationist and believe in a global worldwide flood, which I happen to, and look at things like this and they present compelling evidence for that, seeing lines going this way and then some the opposite direction. We're just doing kind of a quick check to see what might be ready to move on. I do a lot of field tests too, how it feels, if it's smooth. That one's a little rough feeling. This is another guy I got in Custer, Montana. Gonna go for a little more on that one. And most of the stuff, if you watch my other videos, I like, if I see a smooth flat side that looks like it'll hold a shine, I'll send it through. This one be more on the riskier side with all the holes and pivots. It'll collect a lot of grit. So right now I'm looking for really smooth ones to move through, but you can definitely take this piece, and this would be a good one to send through if you're not okay with lots of cleaning and really spending the time to make sure you get all the grit out. And you can see my other videos on how I use the Raytech 5 to do those. This one I've been tempted for a good 3 weeks to pull out. This side is really smooth. I know it's going to hold a good shine even on the edge, but then you get back in here and you've got some real pits and deep cracks. So we're going to keep this guy in the tumbler a little longer. And then sometimes you just have to say enough's enough. This one, there's some serious pitting going in, but then you look at the back side. This is one that you might want to take to the cap shop and just put a window on one side and run with it and leave it as is. And if you saw my riskiest rocks ever, I have one very similar to this with a giant hole in it. It actually came out. This is another Custer, Montana one. But I already have one, so we're looking for a little bit more smoothness on this. So how do you know? It's really personal preference. Like this one, that side's great, the top is good, the bottom's good, and then the last side over here is a huge gouge. So I'm not sure. I'm gonna put that one in the bucket to maybe consider moving that one on. This smoky quartz piece is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. This is from LaGrange Mine, Hog Mine, LaGrange, Georgia. And just this crow has a, he's saying I should put it back, so I will. This is a piece from Patty Mine. And I know I've done some before, but this has still got all kinds of imperfections. I know I could get away with getting a nice shine on this because it's a pretty hard rock, but there's just a lot going on with it still. And I'm not in a hurry because I've got enough to run through stage 2. So that's the other thing too. You look at what do you have available ready to go in stage 2. If you don't have anything and you have time, you probably want to run something like this through. You definitely could and still get good results. I'm just choosing not to. This is a piece of granite, and I actually had one come out. My first one ever came out on the last batch I did. This one, I'm a little concerned about that spot, so we're going to keep them in there longer. Like normally, if I wanted to gamble, that's a nice straight, flat spot. That's flat. Looks like it'll hold a shine, but this area is a little troubling. And I know some people will take it on the saw or grind it down, and I'm just, hey, everybody has their own method, and I'm just sharing you my method. It's rocks like this that make me want to tumble, because just look at the beauty of this thing and how it formed. And once again, with my worldview of God created everything in 6 literal days, 6,000 years ago. This rock is some kind of pseudomorph chalcedony and jasper, and you can see it. Like, look at that line where this thing formed. Like, obviously there's lots of pressure and heat and all kinds of things going on as this formed. It had to be very pliable to get these intricate lines in there. It's just truly a marvel. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for making this. So we're going to let this one go a little bit longer as well. One decision leads to another. This one has a perfect backside. The top is mostly good, but you can see this vein running through there. It's going to be problematic. But here we go. We've added 2 risky ones. Might as well go with 3. And what I can do is just separate them out. Maybe get 2 buckets. Those are definitely ready for stage. These I don't really want to grind on, but I think I can get them through and get a good shine. You're wondering like how long. Like this piece is from Hog Mine, this quartz, and I know this piece has got to be pushing 2 months. Had a lot going on with it. Still got some fractures in there. You can see it's got a nice rounded shape overall, but there's still too many imperfections. And like I said, this part right here, this flat part, that'll come out great, but I'm looking for the whole thing. Interesting. When you get to the bottom, usually you're going to find smaller ones ready to go. It's got white stuff. That is not grit. It does have a little gouge in the back. Since we opened the floodgate, we'll put that in with the risky ones. Wondering, what do you do when you get down to the bottom? Well, you could really hand pick through there and find ones knowing that they're not going to get a whole lot smaller. Like this one is also from Hog Mine, and it's been there for months and months and months, and it's mostly smooth but a little imperfections. But since we're doing risky, we'll put it in there. It's really up to you. A lot of times I just dump these back in and let them work with the bigger rocks. If you see something pretty that might be decent, just remember that most rocks that you take out, you're hand touching each one of them, inspecting them for holes and divots and everything else, and pits. Like this agate is very pitty, even though it's pretty good on that side. So that's just personal preference. Normally I just dump these back in and move on. Like that, although this is kind of a cool agate. Let's see if we can save that one. Moving on to the Covington 12s. Everybody has their own design. This one, I actually like the design. If you saw my other videos, you saw the blowout that happened. This lid came off. For whatever reason, it was not, which I thought was tightened down pretty good, but if you just have it off-centered a little bit, it might be enough not to keep it in there. And this is 9 teaspoons of Tiger's Eye. Let's see how they came out. 9 teaspoons of grit. This is Tiger's Eye. Some cornelian, some more Montana jasper. Oh, look at that guy. Pretty. Some more rose quartz from hog mine, another nice piece of cornelian. So a lot of times I use my Covington 12s for a mix from Rebel 17, and I'll take hodgepodge stuff. Like I had some smaller bit of amethyst. But yeah, that's pretty exciting. It still feels pretty rough there, so that's not going to be ready. But same process. Oh, look at that blue tiger. Blue tiger's out. That's nice. And we see in the bottom, you can see in there, really not too bad on the sludge, so I feel like that's the right amount of grit to put in there. 9 teaspoons for a 12-pound container. What I'm really excited about is the pet wood from Holbrook, Arizona. Alright, we can see we hardly have any sludge at all, nothing stuck to the bottom, so that seemed to be the right number for the pet wood. And like I said, everything is an experimentation. You're figuring out what works for you, your speed, your machines, your grit. So it's just document it, record it, and eventually you fine tune it, find something that works for you, find other videos on YouTube that you like, you want to try. Hopefully this method works for you if you have a Covington 12. Some of these pieces have only been there a week, some are 2 weeks. That one's cool. And that one's gonna need some more time. That one would be challenging, but I think I could get a pretty good shine on there. So here's where you look at a rock and you say, in this case, beautiful, great coloring. I know it'll take a shine because it's pet wood and I've done a piece, but then these holes here. So at some point, you've just got to make a decision. And me, I'm generally going to go on the bigger, the better side and go for the riskier stuff and just have to really deal with these holes. Or and I hate to cut it off because then you lose that white quartz vein in there. So this one I'm going to give it one more week, but at some point, some people would just keep going until all the holes are filled. I'll probably give it another week or two because I love the different rainbow colors in here. So it's constant decision making, and it's your hobby, your choice, your way. Do what works for you. This is where that rose quartz looks like dry. So here's the water levels just below the top of the surface for each of these barrels. And then we're going to add our grit, button them up, and give them another week. These we're probably thinking, I don't know, 2 or 3 more weeks. Some of these, hopefully next week. Some of this amethyst we think will be ready next week, and pet wood, it's pretty much whenever we want to gamble and go for it. Some of them are going to need at least another 2 or 3 weeks. That'll do it for this video. So if you have a Rebel 17 or a Covington 12, this is just kind of the process I use, and you can see after going through 54 pounds of rock, that's all I have that's going through the next stage. I put the other ones back in there. So there you have it, friends. Like and subscribe for more great content. Thank you, and God bless you. Alright, in this video I'm going to show you my clean out process. So these are my Harbor Freight double barrels. Got 2 of those. And my buddy Leo made me this custom homemade tumbler. And it holds 2 Rebel 17s and 2 Covington 12s. And that's pounds. And yes, it's really messy and muddy. I had a blowout and didn't do a good job cleaning it up, but that's for another day. This one's really cool. You can see the waterline banding there and how it formed. So we went through everything, and you see I'm okay with that level. It's a little low. You want to be about 3/4 full on these smaller barrels. And we had 3 pieces we're going to send through. Where normally I wouldn't send any, but it's my first time doing cornelian, so I really want to see what it looks like. So it's more of an experiment. This batch I'm pretty excited about. This has some amethyst and king leopard jasper from my buddy Sue at the Rock Club. Sue is awesome. I love her. She's a sister in Christ and she's very generous and kind. And she also gave me these 4 pieces of black onyx. So those aren't going to be ready to go. This amethyst probably needs another week or 2. I've got a couple of smaller ones that I finished that came out pretty good, so I'm looking for a little bit more perfection on these. So some of these, try to get sunlight here. That one actually, I'm going to send a couple of these through and we'll see how they do. I think it might be ready. This is a pretty representation of what I'm looking for. We got a nice flat side there. It looks shiny wet. That piece is pretty flat. That side's pretty flat. No major divots, so we're going to run that one through. That's kind of what I look for to say, hey, is it done? Of course, it's got rounded edges, so it's not going to cut and gouge into the other stones that will be tumbling. The next bird we're looking at is tiger's eye. I've hand selected each one of these pieces out of quartzite from a vendor. Some of these came out really good. I did run a few through on my last batch, if you saw that video, and the polish just wasn't quite right, so I think they need to be a little bit more perfect. Some of these wet are just fantastic. The chatoyancy on that one is great. That one is awesome. This one with the curvedness to it, that is just brilliant. This little guy I'm going to send through. See, it's hard to get a long one like that. That one just is so cool looking. We're going to try it. I'm not sure if it's ready. Now I know these have been tumbled at least 2 to 3 weeks also. This one has too big of a groove, too much stuff on top, so that's going to have to go back. With everything else in the strainer right now, these are a little bit too much imperfections. This is neat. It looks like it's deformed, but that's actually in the rock. Very small groove on there. I'm hoping this one comes out pretty good. That is so neat looking, especially on this side. Back to the issue of not having full barrels. We're going to call that close. The cornelian's close. The amethyst is half, and let's see how much left of the small tumbles. Okay, so on the fragments, we're about a half. So what I'm probably going to do is add some more of this stuff that Sue gave me and put some more of that in here. The thing is, you want to keep in mind as you're going to do any kind of tumbling is you need more than enough to fill the barrel, because as you replace and you lose material, you want to keep it at 3/4 full. You don't want to use grit in this stage. I made that mistake, or grit. You don't want to use ceramic media in this stage because it's just going to grind down to nothing. I made that mistake. Don't use ceramic media in stage 1 unless you just have the money and you don't have any other rocks to put in there. So lots of other videos about using pea gravel and other things to do besides not having the source rock. So we'll take the scraps that Sue gave me, put them in this barrel to get that full, and then I think I'm going to mix some fancy jasper that also my buddy Sue gave me and put it in here. So everyone needs a friend like Sue. Now we're going to add water to the buckets just below the level of the rocks, and then we're going to add our 60/90 grit. Now this is where the experimentation comes in. A lot of people tell you 3 tablespoons, 3 teaspoons, 1 teaspoon and 1 tablespoon per pound. all really good starting advice. I say experiment with it. I've done as little as 2 and had decent results. 2.5, 3 teaspoons. Usually enough for these smaller barrels. You don't want too much. Definitely don't want to do like anything more than 3. That would be too much. We have 3 teaspoons in each barrel. The other thing I would caution you is to use the same spoon for your rougher grit. Obviously I wash it sometimes, and if you don't have it dedicated in the thing, you don't want to have this spoon go off and do a finer grit later and contaminate the whole batch. So that's a legitimate concern. The thing I do is I text myself what is in each barrel. I label them by letters. You do it numbers, do it any way you want. You don't have to, but that way you can track it back and say, okay, this Cornelian took 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks in stage 1. The Tiger Eye was 5 or 6 weeks, and you can go back and kind of know for next time you're doing the similar material how long it actually took you to get it. This one is a hodgepodge, so because there's so many different minerals, I'd still like to know the total time by the time I'm done with them and then replacing it. So I have a general idea on most of this stuff. That's hard agate stuff. The thing about these Harbor Freight tumblers are they're $69 at the time of this video. A lot of times they'll have a 10% off coupon. If you download the app, join their club, get notified, you can get these for $59. Definitely buy the protection plan. It's anywhere from $10 to $12 in that range, and it gives you 2-year warranty. So if the motor goes bad, if these lids crack right here, there's a nut underneath that, and sometimes they slit, and then you've got grit going through there. Not a huge deal if you're only using them for stage 1, but if you're trying to use it for everything, having this slit in there would be a big deal breaker. Now that we have these buttoned up, we're going to show you the 3-in-1 oil that you want to put and where you want to put it on these Harbor Freight tumblers on the bushings. So these I have on a little 2x4 block to keep them off the ground in case the water gets on the porch, keeps them from, you know, getting soaked. Just a couple drops here and there. That's all you really need, and same on that side. There you have it. That's all you have to do for stage 1 prep and clean out. Thanks for watching this video. Like and subscribe for more great content. If you do see something you like, let me know. Eventually I'm going to have a website and sell these rocks, so if you're super excited about something, just put a comment on there and I can reach out to you and let you know if there's something that you really have to have. I'm not in love with any of these. I mean, I like them all, but everything's for sale at the right price, so just let me know. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a wonderful day, and God bless you. Last thing, so the bigger stuff, it's the same process, just on a larger scale. So nothing changes, the same, the grit, everything else is the same, just more rocks to process. Thanks again, God bless you. This one I really like. You see the bark, and then the bark broke off and just got replaced with silica rich minerals right in there. Just gorgeous piece. Inside of my thinking process, so once I get this backside flat, I'll probably run that through, because dealing with the bark over here, the way it's designed, by God, that it's going to be, it'll probably never get to a point where it's going to be perfectly round and smooth, but the back could for sure. Wow. Woo. So I know, this stuff is just gorgeous. Man, I want to send it all through the next rounds, but there's a lot of challenges there. If you saw one of my last videos, I had a piece similar to this that I took all the way through on the vibratory tumbler, the Raytech 5, and it came out fantastic. So I'm half tempted to do this one. This tree bark looks a little more dense, and I don't know, but you could, decisions, send it through or not. Like I said, with my Covingtons, I usually do a mix. So I've got some blue tiger's eye in there, some red tiger's eye in there. Generally, the Covingtons end up being a mix from, well, it doesn't make out a full Rebel 17. Another piece of granite that is almost ready. It just has one little spot right there on the end that could be problematic. And then here's where the dominoes start to fall. Since I put the red one in there, it's going to take more clean. Might as well throw that one in there. So you see how it kind of snowballs. Here's a good example of one that looks really pretty wet. I think it'll take a good shine. It's got a couple small fissures and cracks, But it's worth the risk because I don't have a whole lot of red rocks. So I'm going to go ahead and move that one on to stage 2, even though I know I'll have to really pay attention to that. That was only 9, that was 10 teaspoons on this, and we 10 teaspoons on the 17s, and we did 9 on this one. Last time I did 12 and I had a bunch of buildup at the bottom, so we've modified it to see if we avoid the sludge buildup at the bottom. Alright, still a little bit of sludge down there, not nearly as bad as it was last time. I had probably a 3/4 inch to a 1/2 inch of rocks stuck in that muck at the bottom. So you see we've got rose quartz. We used 9 teaspoons of grit. No, I'm sorry, let me double check that.